What is up, everybody? It is that time of the week again. NFL Week 11 is here. I've got a lot of plays this week. Hopefully, a lot of money to be made. So this video, as normal, it's going to be a bit longer than the NBA videos, probably up near 20 minutes or so. I have 9 straight bets that I'm going to be going through with you guys today, and 3 parlay fillers too. Hopefully, a lot of money to be made. We've had a really good NFL season so far. We've profited in 9 out of the first 10 weeks with only 1 losing week, which is absolutely crazy with how the things have gone for us. But NBA is really hot too. This last few days haven't been too great for us, but college football was amazing yesterday. Hit some really big slips over on Underdog Fantasy for college football. Couple reminders before I get into the bets today. So number one, join my free Discord. The link to join is in the pinned comment below. We've got about 1,700 members in the server at this point now, so it's growing to be pretty big. A lot of active members during the NBA and NFL season. So join using that link below. We have a really good community, and just be an active member. Just join in. Post your plays, post any questions you have, share your wins. Just be an active member and be a positive impact to everybody. Number two, the VIPs got all these picks. Most of them they got actually on Tuesday and Wednesday earlier this week. So some of these lines did move that I'll be talking about today, but I'll mention what I would do with these line movements as well if I was betting them on Sunday today when I record this video. But if you want to become a VIP, I am running an insane promotion right now. Let me get the image up on screen really quick. So I'm running a promo for $100 annual subscription. So my normal price for VIP is $20 a month or $10 a week. So I'm running this promo through the entire month of November. If you use the link in the video description below to sign up for VIP, it automatically applies the promo code 1000. Or if you go through any of my social media pages, just use promo code 1000 when you sign up for the VIP, and you'll get this $100 annual subscription. The thing is with this, I'm celebrating 1,000 followers on Tails. It's a Black Friday sale too, so I'm going to run it through the entire month of November. And another good thing with this is this $100 price. If you subscribe to it now and you go to renew it next year, you're locked into this price for life. So it's probably the best discount you're going to find for any capper out there. I'm probably never going to run a promotion this good again. So if I do eventually raise like the normal prices or stuff, you'll be locked in to that $100 as long as you keep the renewal on and stuff. So total good value on that one. And like I said, the VIPs, they get my bets really early on in the week. They get screenshots of every single slip that I make, every bet that I place, essentially, I throw into the VIPs. And they get a written analysis of every single one of the player props that I am on for a given slate too, whether it's NBA or NFL, college football. College football, I kind of just post more slips, but we've had some really good success over there with that. So if you want to become a VIP, that's how you do it. And then before I get into the plays here, I just want to show off the research tool that I use every week. The website is called Outlier.bet. It is a paid website, so if you wanted to sign up for a 7-day free trial with them, you can use the link in the video description below, and you'll get 7 days for free when you sign up for Outlier. Honestly, I use this for everything. You see in all my videos, I use it for all of our research for every sport. It's really the only tool that you need. So that's why I push them so much, and that's why I suggest everyone having some sort of tool just like it, so you can find these plays yourself. But that's enough of me yapping. Let's jump into the plays here because it's going to take me a bit to get through them all. A lot of things to run through. So the first one I want to talk about is Jordan Love. I have over 11.5 rushing yards, so the line actually moved down, which makes sense because the Giants, they're just in total shambles right now. But Jameis Winston's starting for them, but that's besides the point. So it's 9.5 right now on Underdog Fantasy, PrizePicks, and all the other websites. I've got 11.5. The reasoning behind this one, so Jordan Love is averaging 15.3 rushing yards per game this season, while going over this number in 6 out of 9 games. The Giants, they're allowing the second most rushing yards per game to quarterbacks this year at 27.9 yards per game. They've actually allowed 8 quarterbacks to go for 13 or more rushing yards against them. I haven't looked for the 10 or more number. I'd have to go back and deeper into that. I do use some other box score sites to see all the game results. Outlier only shows the last 5 weeks. but they've given up 13 or more yards to 8 quarterbacks this season in what, 10 games, right? 9 or 10 games. So super strong spot for Jordan Love. He really can get there on like 1 or 2 carries, and he is rushing, 4 or 5 times a game sometimes, occasionally just one, and it could even be like a kneel or something. But I do think he'll go over this. Definitely his 9.5 number, but I'm hoping he gets over that 11.5 for me too. But there is some slight game script concerns because this could turn into a blowout. I mean, the Packers are 7.5 point favorites on the road, which who knows? We'll see what Jameis we get this week. Next play, we're going to head over to the Chiefs game if I could find it. I'm not going to go in order of the times here. I'm just going to go in order of my notes that I just posted throughout the week. So the bet that I'm on is Travis Kelce over 44.5 receiving yards. This line moved only slightly on Underdog Fantasy. It actually just moved slightly down. So another one where going against my trend in a sense. But everyone thinks he's old and dusty and done and just looking forward to his wedding with Taylor Swift. But he's actually averaging 60 yards per game this season. He's looked pretty good, albeit, the Chiefs have had a lot of injuries to receivers and the Rice suspension and everything. But even with them all back and stuff, he's doing very well and sustaining this number pretty good. He's gone over this number, this 42.5 number, 8 out of 9 games this season. And the Broncos have actually allowed 5 tight ends, other tight ends to go for 46 or more yards against them this season, even though they held Brock Bowers to 31 yards last week. But if you combine him and Mayer, it was 53. But Kelce, he's just an active part of this offense. It's not a great matchup for him, but it's good enough, and he gets the volume. So I think he's going to keep this trend going. It's a big game for them. I personally think the Broncos might actually win this game. So Kansas City might be throwing a little bit more than normal. And, Kelce always shows up for the big games. He had 64 yards against them last year, too, on 12 targets, 8 catches on 12 targets for 64 yards. So he is pretty involved in this offense, and he has a really high target share, even though a lot of people think he's done. I don't think he's done yet. Next play, JJ McCarthy over 21.5 rushing yards is what I got. It is now up to 23.5. I'd probably take it at 23.5. I think that's okay. It's not as strong, but it's close enough. So the reasoning behind this, I actually had Jackson Dart against the Bears last week on his rushing prop, and he smashed it with 66 yards. We had 53 yards, I think was the number for one of the alternate lines. But anyways, the Bears, they're giving up the most rushing yards per game to quarterbacks this year, 28.4 rushing yards per game. Basically, the Bears, they've allowed 5 quarterbacks to go for 25 or more rushing yards against them, and including JJ McCarthy back in week 1, too. So he already did this against them once. He is running a bit. He's averaging 5.3 rush attempts per game. Granted, it is skewed a little bit from that Detroit game, but if he stays healthy, and this is just a great rushing spot for a quarterback, and he has a sneaky running upside, too. You wouldn't expect that he can run by looking at him, but like I said, he's averaging 27.5 rushing yards per game. So it's a solid spot for him. I would take the 23.5. Obviously, I got the 21.5 earlier in the week, which you're not going to find anywhere, but 23.5 and honestly 24.5 is fine too. But anything higher than that, I'd probably skip out on. All right. Next play is an under on Sunday Night Football primetime game. This line's actually moved a little bit. I got Saquon Barkley under 73.5 rushing yards. He's now down to 70.5. Reasoning behind this, he went over under this number in 7 out of 9 games this year. He's running significantly less this season. So it could be a product of just the Eagles not being as dominant this year as compared to last year. But his rush attempts are down to 16.6 attempts per game compared to 21.8 attempts per game last year. But like I said, some of that might be game script dependent too. Barkley has got under his number 7 out of 9 games. The Lions, they allow the 3rd least rushing yards per game to running backs at 71.8. And they've only allowed 2 players to go for over 66 yards against them. So I would take this Barkley at 70.5. I got 73.5. I'd probably go all the way down to like 65.5 if I'm honest with you. So I think it's a solid play at the 70.5 number on Underdog. And on PrizePicks, it looks like it might be at 71. Maybe it's at 69. Let's see. Yeah, it's at 69.5. So I'm fine with 69.5 on PrizePicks, but you definitely should be using both books so you can get that 70 on Underdog Fantasy because you always want to take the best line that is out there. All right. Next play. These are some of the plays that I added in on Saturday. So these lines probably wouldn't move too much at this point, but you never know. So the first one is Noah Fant over 21 and a half receiving yards. The reasoning behind this, Fant is averaging 35 yards per game since Flacco took over. So that's these last 4 games or so. He's had 27 or more yards in all 4 of these games, and the matchup really can't get much better for him. The Steelers, we've been targeting receivers and pass catchers against them the entire season. They're giving up the 6th most receiving yards per game to tight ends at 68.1 yards per game. And they've actually already allowed 10 tight ends to go for 25 or more yards against them. We only need 22 here. We don't need the 25. So I like this over 21 and a half number for Noah Fant. Mike Gesicki is going to be out still, which helps Fant. Flacco, he will lock in on Chase a ton. Chase is going to get an insane amount of targets, most likely. Chase Brown probably will too with P. Ryan out. But Noah Fant, I think he can do enough to get us what we need here for the yards. He'll probably end up with like 3 catches, maybe 4 for lucky, for like 25 to 30 yards or something. But whatever gets over his 21 and a half number is good for me. Next play is a play that's contingent if he's active. I've actually tried betting this the last 3 weeks that he's been out, but it's Calvin Ridley over 17 and a half yards on the longest reception. This is a play that I usually bet. I think I was betting it at like 15 and a half for a while, but the 17 and a half is still pretty good. It's just a straight up trend because of the frequency that it hits. So he's gone over this number in 5 out of 6 games this year and 14 out of 17 games last year. So that's mainly the reasoning behind that. It's just something that hits more often than not. And it really was, what is this, 12 and 5. So that's 17 out of his last 18 games. He went over this 17 and a half number. So strong trend in his favor. He's even going over with Cam Ward too, even though this Tennessee team is awful. But he actually was the leading receiver in targets for the last few weeks that he was healthy before going down with the injury. He had some really bad games mixed in here where he had like 3 catches there and he wasn't getting a bunch of targets. The Vegas game is the game he got hurt and he actually had an 18-yard catch, like the first catch of the game. And then he was out the rest of the game. So solid spot for Ridley. I think he's still the number 1 on Tennessee, even though it didn't seem that way early on in the season. And he tends to go over this longest reception number. And there's another guy on a longest reception that I'll talk about here in a minute, which you guys probably know what I'm talking about, but we'll talk about it when we get there. One more play before we get to that play I just mentioned. It is Kareem Hunt over 42 and a half rushing yards. Now this chart is going to look gross, right? He's only gone over this number in 2 out of 9 games this year, only averaging 32.6 yards per game. Like, why am I taking this bet? Isaiah Pacheco is out. So I'm going to filter for games without Isaiah Pacheco. And now we're going to look at the chart here. So we'll look at last 10 because it's a 9-game sample size. He averages 69.6 yards per game, going over this number 8 out of 9 times. Ironically, the only time he didn't go over was in a very tough match against this exact Denver team last year. I'm willing to take my chances in the larger sample size, even though it is a more difficult matchup for him, with Denver only allowing 78 yards per game and for 9th best in the NFL. But he is going to get the majority of the carries. He tends to get around 55% or more of the carries. I don't really trust Brashard Smith as much as a runner, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire was brought up recently too, but he really hasn't gotten involved much this year, too much just yet. So I think Hunt's going to get the majority of the carries too. Just kind of depends on the game flow. If the Chiefs get down early, Hunt probably won't be doing much on the rushing side, but I do like this play. It's not my favorite play of the slate. It's a little bit fringe, but I only have it in 1 slip, but it still could hit, and it's still something that I do have some cash on this week. Line is 42 and a half on Underdog Fantasy. On PrizePicks, I think I saw it's up to 45 and a half. 45 and a half is a bit more risky. I would just go to Underdog and bet that 42 and a half. You don't really want to give up your 3 yards of value just because you don't want to use a different book, because if they're both accessible to you, you might as well just make sure you're getting the best number on the right book. The last straight up play that I'm on before I get into the parlay fillers, it is our most faithful line of the year. Last 2 years, actually. So it actually moved up a bit. It's up to 26 and a half now. Originally, it was 25 and a half, but it's the CeeDee Lamb longest reception. I'll talk about this in my Monday Night Football video that I'll release on Monday too, but I want to get this to you guys just because you guys know, it's my favorite play of the week every week. Basically, in games where Dak Prescott is healthy and CeeDee Lamb is also healthy, They've gone over this number in 7 out of 7 games last year. The game against Atlanta was the game where Dak got hurt. This year, it's been 5 out of 6 games. This is the game that CeeDee Lamb got hurt at like the first play of the game. So, he's gone over every single time, basically. Just a really good spot for him. And I'm just going to keep taking this until it burns me because it's been a trend last 2 years and the number's starting to tick up. When I first started taking it, it was like 23 and a half. Then it was 24 and a half, then 25 and a half, now 26 and a half. I think once it hits the 27 and a half number, I'll start shying away from it because that seems like to be the sweet spot. If once you get up to 27 and a half, then it's only 5 out of 8 last year. But I do, like I said, I'm going to take this every single week as long as we keep getting this number. And it doesn't even matter the matchup. A lot of people against Denver are like, oh, he's against Sertan. There's no way he gets it. I mean, he got it with, I think he got it twice, to be honest, you in the game. Like it's just something that he consistently gets and I'm not going to stop taking. And if it loses this week, I'll probably still take it again next week because I follow the trend. And this has been my favorite bet the last 2 seasons. All right. Now let's get into the parlay fillers, Green Goblin plays. So these are like the alternate lines that you can just use to parlay with some of these other plays. The first one is in the morning game on Sunday. I think they're in Spain this week, but it's Bill Krosky Merritt over 19 and a half rushing yards. He's gone over this number in 9 out of 10 games this season, and every game since Eckler went out with injury. So let me filter for the games without Austin Eckler because we want to look at the real sample size here. So 8 games without Eckler, averaging 46.4 yards per game. The Dolphins, it's such a nut matchup for him. They're giving up the 5th most rushing yards in the NFL to running backs at 112.8 yards per game. And they've allowed 14 other running backs to go for 20 or more yards against them. And every single running back who has had 10 or more carries against the Dolphins this year has had 41 or more yards against them. So, you can even consider his regular line, which is only 29 and a half. Because if you think he's going to get 10 carries, which the majority of the time he does, it obviously is a little bit game script dependent. If Washington gets down a bunch early, they're not going to be running Bill a ton. But if it's a close game, he's very likely to end up somewhere between 10 and 14 carries or so, which would fit the trend of all the running backs going for 41 or more yards against them. So I like this alternate line for safety. I have it on a couple slips on PrizePicks just to get some. Actually, I mixed them with some Thursday night plays really to get some early cash in before the main slate. But that's probably filler number 1. Number 2 is Rachaad White over 24 and a half yards, which is another similar scenario. So Bucky Irving is going to be out yet again. He should be coming back pretty soon. So this might be the end of the run for Rachaad White. But in games without Bucky this year, he's averaging 43.4 rushing yards per game. Great matchup against Buffalo, allowing 116.6 rushing yards per game to running backs. I think it's the 3rd worst in the NFL. And they've actually allowed 12 other running backs to go for 25 or more yards against them too. So great spot for Rachaad White. He is the main guy. Sean Tucker is mixing in. So it is like a 50-50 split. But I think this is probably the last week that we'll probably be able to use Rachaad White in a rushing sense in general. And he's really not the most efficient runner by any means. Like, it's not going to be a pretty sight. But he got 38 yards last week against New England, and that was 38 tough yards. And he's getting at least 10 carries per game too. So he's going to get the touches. It's just a matter if he can get these 25 yards for us. And I do think he does against Buffalo, as long as the game doesn't get out of hand, because Buffalo is a decent favorite at home. And Josh Allen is on a revenge tour after looking pretty shitty the last week in his matchup against the Dolphins. So 24 and a half, Rachaad White as a parlay filler. And I got one more bet for us today. It is Justin Jefferson over 39 and a half receiving yards. Jefferson's gone over this number in 25 out of his last 27 games going back to last season. He only had 37 last week against Baltimore, but I expect to bounce back against Chicago this week. And the Bears are actually allowing the 7th most receiving yards per game to wide receivers at 160 yards per game. And they've allowed 21 wide receivers to go for 40 or more yards against them this season. So it's just a really good spot for JJ. It's a bounce back spot. I know JJ McCarthy is not the best quarterback. At least he hasn't looked that way, like throwing wise this year. But Justin Jefferson's so good where he can catch like a screen and run for the 40 yards if we need him to. So great spot for JJ in this against Chicago to get back on the stride. That is going to wrap things up for me this week. A ton of plays, longer video. I think we're almost up to 20 minutes now or so. But hopefully you guys liked this video. If you did, subscribe to the channel. Join the free Discord. Link is in the pinned comment below. Join VIP. Take advantage of this promotion because it's going to end at the end of November. So you have 2 weeks from the day to get in on that annual subscription. And, last but definitely not least, best of luck on your bets this week. And I will see you Monday with an NBA and an NFL video, hopefully giving you guys some more winners and, filling our pockets with some cash. So best of luck this week, everybody. Thanks.